Hi, this is Richie Kotzen on Heavy Magazine, and I'm here to let you know I've got a new album coming out called Nomad.
Beautiful, Richie. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So, as you say, brother, you released your latest solo album, Nomad, on September 27th. So that's not far away now, bro. How are you feeling about it?
I feel good. I'm very happy with it. I'm happy with what I recorded, and I'm looking forward to sharing it. And we're actually on tour right now, and we've been playing Cheap Shots and On the Table live, so that's been fun. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting it out there. I hope people are feeling it the same way I do, you know?
Yeah. Now, you're obviously a very highly creative person, mate. So, when you finish an album, like, do you put it to bed and move on, or do you sort of sit there and think about what you could have done differently or how you could have improved?
Oh, yeah, I love that question. Um, I put it to bed and move on, you know? I don't like, so what happens, I get to the point where I listen to it in the creative process, and it starts to resemble what it was that I was hearing in my mind. And once the speakers are reproducing that accurately, I know I'm finished and I move on. And then what happens is typically I fall into a heavy depression because there was a lot of, you know, stuff happening internally during the creative process that's very exciting and very rewarding. And then it's done and it's over. And then it's like, okay, now what? And so uh, you gotta, for me, I gotta go off and do some other things. Oftentimes I have to do something outside of music, like just go, somewhere on the property and start raking leaves or trimming a tree or something. And then wait until the next fire starts to get me inspired.
Yeah, cool. So, can you tell us a bit more about Nomad from a musical point of view and what you were going for with the album?
Sure. I mean, like most of my albums, it's about, song by song. I focus on the composition at hand. And then ultimately, when I get to a point where I feel like I have enough compositions that make sense to live together comfortably, then I start thinking in terms of an album. And so for this one, I got to that point where I thought, you know, uh, I have the makings of an album. And I started writing notes like, okay, well, Cheap Shots became very obvious that that's how I wanted to open the record. And then it became very obvious that Nihilist was my last statement that I wanted to make on the album. So that was the closer. And somewhere in there, I started thinking in terms of records that I liked when I was young. And I started realizing that many of them did not have an absurd amount of songs on the album. Many of them had 8, 9, you know. And so I started looking at that and I thought, well, if I was to mirror something that, was happening in my youth with in terms of that, let's see, how would I sequence this? And I started thinking like side A and side B, and I started putting it together that way. And so in my mind, which I've never done that before, I was thinking in terms of like a vinyl album, when I made this record. And it was exciting for me because, that was such a special time for me back in the day, going and buying a record and all that stuff. You know, I appreciate the fact that, a compact disc still sounds much better than the vinyl with the speed kind of changing and the record's a little warped and there's noise from the needle and all that stuff. But just the aesthetic of the physical aspect of, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I was fortunate enough to have a listen to the album before this interview, mate, and it's another fantastic effort from you, mate. I don't think you've ever made a bad album, honestly. You've got something,
Thank you.
something magic, but there's as well as your sort of rock influences on this, mate. You draw influence from there's hard rock to 70s infused soul and funk. There's a bit of jazz fusion going on, touch of R&B. Like, it's a pretty eclectic mix. Is it like was that a goal to cover a lot of different genres?
No, and it never is. And so all that stuff, the only time that stuff is disclosed or comes up is when people ask you, and it's a normal thing for someone to ask, but it's like, well, where do you draw your from inspiration from, or this or that? And the fact is that I'm not consciously thinking about any of that, especially at this stage of my life. But if you start really going down the rabbit hole, I have to think back to when I was a child. And so the first concert I ever went to was Stevie Wonder.
Mhm.
Then it was George Benson. And then shortly after that, I got exposed to hard rock. Then it was Iron Maiden. So if I start going down the rabbit hole of like, well, who did you listen to when you were young? You can start to put together like, okay, well, this is these are my influences. I love Sly and the Family Stone. I love Parliament Funkadelic, but I also love Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath and AC/DC. So, that's kind of my wheelhouse. But as a a fully grown recording artist, I never sit around and think, oh, let me do something like similar to what Larry Graham would do on the bass. Not to say that that doesn't happen because I've listened to those records and it's in my DNA and my musical, background. But in the process of writing, I would never sit and say, "Oh, let me do something that's sort of like."
Yeah.
It would be the other way around. It's like I would do something and it'd be done and it'd be like, "Oh, wow, it kind of reminds me of like something Curtis Mayfield would have recorded." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's never like the other way around of like, all right, I'm going to really go for a song that sounds like Run to the Hills from Iron Maiden.
I was doing a bit of a tally up of your albums, mate, and I got to 20 and gave up counting. You've got that many of them, but how do you challenge yourself musically with each new album cycle? Like, I haven't done so much already.
I don't. I just wait. I don't challenge myself. I don't like challenges and I don't like obstacles. I find them very uninspiring and just, ugh, why bother? You know, the same way in relationships, like when I was young, if there was a lady I was interested in, it became an obstacle course, I would I would just not
Too hard, mate.
then no, no. I'm not interested in challenges, obstacles, proving anything. It's not in my wheelhouse. So with music, I wait and I wait for inspiration. And if something strikes me, it's like, okay, this needs to be written because if I don't write this, it's going to haunt me and drive me into madness, you know. So I just wait. I wait for it to happen. And then once the door opens, then I walk through, and it's like the preparation. I know how to handle these musical ideas and bring them to life.
So along those lines, mate, do you think it becomes easier or harder to come up with fresh new material the more you write?
Well, I think it ties into what I said. It's not something that I'm aware of. So, I have you know, this thing where I always say like I don't believe in writer's block because uh if if I'm not writing, it just means there's nothing that's meant to be written for me right now. As opposed to one morning I might wake up and have a song idea. And then at that point, when I have the idea, it's up to me. It's up to me to go to my phone and document it. Now, in my phone right now, I've got, let's see what it is today. I can't see my phone, but I'm going to tell you, I'm doing this for a reason because I'm curious. I got 398 memos.
Jesus.
398 memos that are recordings of me mumbling or singing or playing a guitar that are ideas.
Right.
And at some point when I'm in the mood, I'll go look at them and something might strike me as interesting and I'll start writing it. I'll work on it and I'll get it to a point and then I'll leave and do something else. And that's been my process forever, you know?
Very cool. Now you wrote, recorded, and produced Nomad yourself, and you played most of the instruments as well. So is that because you know the sounds you want, and it's easy for you just to do it yourself?
Yeah, that's the only reason. The only reason that I do it that way is because of what you just said, is because I know how to get from point A to point B. And once I'm hearing back my vision, I know I'm finished. But that doesn't mean that I don't welcome other folks to come and, help me with a piano part or a drum part or something. But in general, once I'm on a roll, I kind of get in this zone of like, okay, I hear this beat. Let me play this beat. Okay, I hear this bass line. Okay, and well, let me go back. Let me add a drum fill there. And suddenly I'm doing all this stuff in like this kind of round robin, like, or I'm doing the drums. Okay, now I'm doing a vocal idea, but oh shit, I don't like that one drum fill I did last week. Let me go back and punch in and fix it. It's really that, you know. And but ultimately when it's all said and done, I get to the point where it sounds the way I want it to sound.
Yeah, yeah,
And then and like, you know, as long as you're doing, and anybody can do what I'm doing, by the way, you know, if you work at, you know, if you develop the skill set. But the idea is the skill set is delivering your musical concept. So you need two things. You need a point of view, something to say, right? We'll call that your concept. And then you need the skill to execute your ideas. So you need to be able to pick up the guitar and actually play the part, or get behind the drums and play the groove, you know. So those two components together, and then you can, you know, get to the end game, which is the speakers reproducing your vision. And for everybody, it works differently. But for me, you know, I've been doing it that way most of my life. And so that's what I like. And the other thing that goes with that is that if you're doing it for yourself, then it works.
yeah.
It'll work. It'll be a success as long as you have the mindset that I'm doing this for my own well-being and my own pleasure. And then anything that happens after that is up in the air. Where it gets very twisted and complicated and sometimes frustrating and not so pleasant is when you introduce the component of exterior expectations,
Yeah.
right? That's where, you know, and, you know, the payoff in that realm can be extraordinary, but the pain to get there and the fact that you may be bitterly disappointed and end up holding something that you really didn't want that way. I just never got into that psychology. So, you know, yeah.
Makes sense. And how much of your albums is ad-libbed in the studio? Like, do you just write everything before you go in and stick to that, or do you make a bit up as you go along?
Well, a little bit of both. So, you know, obviously it's, oh man, it's different for everything. I mean, sometimes I have, you know, a chorus written with the guitar, and I have a verse idea, a concept for the verse. And at that point, I'll just go in and start recording the song because I know it's going to all come together. Other times, I may just have a melody, uh, and I'll just start playing music to the melody, and I'll start scat singing, and I'll scat sing nonsense. And then I'll hear when I listen back, oh, it sounds like you said, take another cheap shot right there. Write that down.
Right.
And then I'll, you know, and then I'm like, okay, well, cheap shot. I could write a song around someone like insulting me, taking cheap shots, you know? And so now I got this track, and I start filling in the blanks of like, and now all of a sudden, oh, I got a story, you know? Oh, I can write this song about this or that. You know what I mean? But so they all come a little differently. Other times I'm in my living room with an acoustic guitar, and like I have a song called What Is, I always use as an example. The thing wrote itself. I mean, literally, I was strumming the chords and the words just came out, and I grabbed pen and paper and I started writing it down, and the song wrote itself. I mean, I wrote it, obviously, but figuratively, it wrote itself. It just came out. And when that happens, that's like really cool, you know?
Would be.
Yeah.
One of the roles that you had, as we said, was you produced the album yourself, mate. So how hard is it being critical of your own work in that role as producer?
Oh, there's nobody more critical of my own work than me.
Right.
Because I know, see, here's the beauty of it. And again, anybody can get to this point, is where you get to the point where you know your instrument so well. And for me, my instrument is my singing voice. You know, that's really the most valuable element of what I have, other than the ability to write a song and put words together with melodies. But, you know, I know when I'm connected. So, you know, I've had situations where like a guy would be like, "Oh, I would love to produce you, you know, let me, you know, let's go in and let's do this." And so now I'm in a position where I'm singing and I've got someone saying, "Oh no, like this, or do that, do that." And in my mind, I'm like, I don't feel connected to this emotionally. they might think that this is good, but I know that it's not great because I don't have the feeling of what greatness feels like for me. And so when you know your instrument very well, you know when you're singing and delivering a line, you know when it's really believable because you know when you really felt it. Something happens internally that's a real deep connective feeling. And so many times I'll listen to something and I'll be like, I don't believe that. I don't buy you. When you sing that one line, something's not right. Sing it again, you know. And until I have that thing that clicks, oh, that was it. That was it. Don't touch it. You know, don't. I mean, in the old days, I say don't touch it because the engineers like running a tape machine. Like I've seen horrible shit happen. It's like, don't touch. Take it out of record. Put me on another track. You know what I mean? I mean now with Pro Tools it's a little different, but I know when I'm on and when I'm off. And
Yeah.
then sometimes something comes out and it's like, oh, well, that could have been a little more in tune, or it could have been this, but it's like, well, but the pocket of where that sat in the time and the inflection was so perfect. No, 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 no. It's not going to get any better than that. Trust me. Leave it alone. You know.
That'd
And
be
the last thing I'll say, and the most frustrating thing with working with others is you might create something and do something. And you might have a moment that is so honest and true and brilliant in your psyche. And the person listening, and there might be three things in the track that are a little fucked up, but you're just too lazy to fix it. It never fails that this person will go and point out the thing that's brilliant. Well, I think maybe if you add a harmony to that, and I'm like, oh my God, the whole reason that works is because it's alone. It's one single voice by itself. And you want to fuck that up. Meanwhile, there's three things wrong with this fucking song that you can't hear. And I'm not going to bring that up because that's a whole can of worms. You know what I mean? So,
when you put it that way. Well,
yeah.
now, Nomad is out on September 27th, mate, but I can imagine you've got a bit of a hectic touring schedule after that. Is Australia in your plans yet?
We're talking about it. Management is actually kicking the tires with some promoters to see what they come back with. So, maybe it's been 2017 was the only time I think I was there.
I think I was at that show, the Brisbane show. Did you play with Rusty from Electric Mary? Was he your support?
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
I
Yeah.
was I was at that show and it fucking blew me away. Absolutely. Yeah, I
Oh,
can't wait for
thanks.
you to come back, bro.
Cool, man. Thanks.
Now, before we let you go, mate, I've got a new segment where I go through our band's Facebook pages and I pick out a couple of photos and just get you to tell me the story behind them, mate. So we,
Fuck.
we got this one first, mate. What are you wearing there?
Oh, that's me and Cheech who passed away. Uh, well, I'm wearing I bought that so on Melrose by the Fairfax High School, they have like a swap meet every Sunday, which I've been going there, for I don't know, 30 years, however long. And the lady had that hanging up, and it's made out of hemp material. And that photo was probably during the lockdown, and I'm chilling with my doggy. I can't see my face on the picture, but
Yeah, so
I
you
don't know
look
if I'm
very comfortable.
smiling.
You look very,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
you're smiling. I think the caption on it said something about you'd pick up the guitar and the dog just comes and makes itself comfortable right where you want to play. It's beautiful.
yep, that's the Doberman for you.
And we got one more with you and a few of the boys on a beach with jeans on. What the hell?
Uh, okay, yeah, well, I can explain that. That was that was not a beach day. The restaurant happens to be on the beach. That's close to where I live, and that's Paradise Cove. And so you've got a restaurant there, uh, and I think it's the only one that has a section where you can drink alcohol, actually, unless they changed that. But we were recording, we were writing for what would be our third album. And we took a break and drove down to have lunch. And that's why we're dressed like that. It wasn't necessarily a beach day.
Well, I thought I was the only one who wore jeans and a black shirt at the beach, mate. But
Yeah.
let me know that I'm not a total
Ridiculous.
weirdo.
It is ridiculous. And you look at that unto itself, it's quite silly. I agree.
Very good. All right, Richie. Well, thanks very much for your time today, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Nomad is out September 27th, and it's a fucking brilliant album, mate, as usual. So best of luck with it, and we'll see you when you come back to Australia.
Okay, thank you. Cheers.
Lying in my bed, a midnight gaze. This is the drill. Ride with me. I've got those hooks inside of me. They cut me deep, but I won't bleed. It's really like a mystery. I can't fall asleep. This ain't no fever dream. Shut up, doing alright, 'cause we're about to go alright. Oh, it's all you and your body dreaming now. You better hold on tight, 'cause we're about to go alright. Oh, it's all you. I'm gonna make you work for me. A heavy head in purple haze. A tested will. Die with me. I've got those hooks inside of me. They cut me deep, but I won't bleed. I'll take on all your misery. I'll be through what you feel. I hear the silent scream. Shut up, doing alright, 'cause we're about to go alright. Oh, it's all you and your body dreaming now. You better hold on tight, 'cause we're about to go alright. Oh, it's all you. I'm gonna make you work for me. I'm about to lose the rest of my mind.